Your heart is the control room of your soul. So whatever it is that gets in there, whether it's good or bad, it's gonna start to pull the levers of your emotions. Whatever gets in there, whether it's good or bad, is gonna start turning the steering wheel of your desires. Good or bad, if it gets in there, it's gonna push the buttons of your mind and your thoughts. And as a man thinks, so is he. Thoughts soon turn to action, and out from your heart flows everything that you do. How do you get in to this control room, you might ask? How do you get into this vault? Through the door of your eyes, the door of your ears, the door of your speech, and the door of your feet. So whether you are looking at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel or a demonic horror movie, you're giving it access to the control room. Whatever you listen to, whether it's the new Journey Worship album EP that just came out on Friday, streaming on all platform services, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. Shameless plug. Whether you're listening to worship music or you're listening to Marilyn Manson, you're giving it access to the control room. Whenever you speak anything, whether it's life or death, for the power of both are found in the tongue, you're giving it access to the control room. Whenever you go somewhere, whether it's to church or whether it's to a place that you know you shouldn't be, you are making a predetermined decision about what you're going to expose the other doors to. Be vigilant about what gets in. You got to know where the doors are if you're going to keep some stuff out, right? Track with me here. Let's do a little activity, shall we? We all love activities. What goes up must come down. Okay, little more oomph this time. Wake up, everybody. Boynton, you with me online? What goes up must come down. It's a law of physics. Now track with me here. What goes in must come out. It's a law of the heart. So we have to be vigilant about what comes in, because one way or another, it's coming out. Jesus talks about this principle in the book of Luke, chapter 6. He says, no good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Jesus is speaking metaphorically here. The tree is the source of the fruit, much like the heart is the source of life. So this verse could also be read this way. No good heart bears a bad life, and no bad heart bears a good one. You can have everything in this world, everything this life has to offer, but if the tree is no good, the fruit will always be sour. Verse 44, he says, each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People don't pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. If you want to do a little heart diagnostic, you want to check in on the status of your heart. Your heart is recognized by its life, the life that flows from it. So consider this. How is your thought life right now? How's your desires, your desire life? What are you desiring most in this world right now? What are you pursuing? What keeps you awake at night? What's your emotional life like? Are you an emotional wreck? Can't regulate them? Maybe you don't feel anything at all. The tree is recognized by its fruit. Verse 45, for a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. Watch this. For the mouth speaks of what the heart is full of. What goes in must come out. So we have to be vigilant above all else about what gets access to the control room of our soul, because it will dictate the course of our life. It will dictate the path that we take, one that either leads towards life or one that leads toward destruction. Whatever is inside of you, you will project. What goes in must come out. Check this thing out. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a piece of trash. I mean that literally. This is a piece of garbage. When we moved into this property 10 years ago, the previous tenants had thrown it into the dumpster. Bob and his boys rescued it out of the dumpster. They felt like I should have it. I'm not offended. I'm not offended by that, but I still have it. 10 years later, for whatever reason, I still have this. In fact, 2 days ago, when I went to go find it for this illustration, I found it without strings. The bridge was missing and the saddle was missing. I literally had to put work into it to get it to this point, okay? This is a piece of garbage. Now, to illustrate this point, what goes in must come out. I figured I'd show you what happens when I plug in a piece of garbage. What are you gonna hear? Y'all ready? Are you with me? All right, here's the demonstration. Ready? Count off with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. You weren't expecting that? Of course not. This is a guitar. It doesn't even make that sound. Let alone it's a piece of garbage. But how come we allow garbage into our heart and we expect a symphony to flow out into our life? A bad tree will not produce good fruit. A trash guitar will not produce a beautiful sound. A sick heart will not produce a healthy life. In fact, if you listen to your heart, our emotional life sounds like our thought life is just, our desires are all over the place. Our prayer life, our emotional life, our relational life. Now, we can all resonate with this, pun intended, right? Like we've all gotten to a point in our life at some point where we didn't like the sound of our life. We didn't like what was coming out. But here's where we tend to go wrong. We tend to put all of our focus and all of our energy into what's coming out, so much so that we forget to address the source altogether. So we say, oh, been drinking a lot. I'm gonna drink a little less this week. I'm only gonna have one drink on the weekend, just one, and we tune it up just a little bit, right? We start to change the output. We start to change the behaviors. We say, okay, I'm still gonna hang out with that crowd, but I'm just not gonna speak gossip. I'm not gonna speak death over anybody. Look at that, that's good. Okay, let's just keep going. I'm doing right, I'm doing good, right? This is sounding better already, I can feel it. Okay, I'm still gonna watch that movie, but I'm gonna try really hard to not be filled with fear so I can sleep at night. We have this tendency to look at the outward appearance. It says in 1 Samuel that the Lord doesn't see things the way that people see things. In fact, people look at the outward appearance, people look at the output, but the Lord looks at the heart. Why? Because he knows if the heart is sick, eventually what flows out of a sick heart will soon be out of tune once more. If we're gonna build Heart Knocks, which I think we're all interested in, by this point, come on. We have to recognize this. Your heart needs purification, not behavior modification. Your heart needs purification. You need to address the source. You don't need to modify what's coming out of it. King David understood this well. King David, the father of the wisest man that had ever lived, is involved in a pretty famous story, David and Bathsheba. One evening, David looks out the window and he sees a beautiful woman bathing on the roof next door. And so he sends one of his people to go get Bathsheba, bring her back to him. They slept together. And a few weeks later, he finds out that she's pregnant. So he says, I gotta fix this. So he sends word to the general of the army because Bathsheba's husband is at war during this time. He says, send him back home so that they can sleep together. He thought if they can just sleep together, then when the baby is born, everybody's gonna think it's their baby, not my baby, and I'm gonna be scot-free, right? Well, here's the ironic part. He comes back home from war, and this man is a man of character and integrity. He says, I'm not gonna sleep with my wife. I'm not gonna sleep in the comforts of my own bed when I know my friends and my comrades are in the trenches right now. Send me back. Plan thwarted. So he gets sent back to battle, and David does the unthinkable. He says to the commander, put him on the front lines. Death sentence. Kills him. So what starts as an inappropriate image going through the door of his eyes, right into the control room of his soul, begins to pull the levers of his emotions. It turns the steering wheel of his desires, pushes the buttons of his thought life, and soon his thoughts turn to action, which was adultery and essentially murder. Now, this is a pretty extreme case, but you're tracking with what I'm saying here. Eventually, David, he comes to a place of repentance, and I want you to see what his prayer to God was. When he heard the sound of his life and was displeased with it, what did he do? Famous prayer found in Psalms 51:10. Create in me a desire to not kill anybody. Create in me more willpower, more willpower to not look at anything bad. No. Create in me a clean heart. Oh God, renew a right spirit within me. David understood that his heart needed purification, not behavior modification, because he knew that whatever's flowing out into his life was stemming from a source. How many of you know you can take ibuprofen, but in 6 hours the pain is just gonna come back? We've got to stop addressing the outputs and start looking at the source, the inputs, your heart. Let the Lord work on that so that our life can flow into the abundance, wellness that we all so desire.